Welcome back to the channel. It is October 1st and it's pretty crazy to think at this point I've officially lived in North Carolina for 1 year, which is wild. So much has changed over this past year and it's been cool to get back into YouTube in that time and be able to share the journey with you from being in a reverse phase from my plan to compete last year and then deciding to shift course, moving through a serious growth phase, and then eventually deciding to step away from bodybuilding. And I just really appreciate your support throughout this process and throughout the journey that did not go at all as planned, but has led to a lot of learning and a lot of growth. As you know, I did a vegan diet for several months and now I am in a phase of doing a keto diet. And I say a phase because now at this point, I believe I'm week 3 of keto. I'm really enjoying it, but I don't think that it's something that I'll do long term. And there's a few reasons. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So besides just sharing a full day of eating where I'll just kind of walk you through some of the meals that I've had over the last few days, as truly I am varying my diet and tend to switch a few things from day to day because I am still very much honoring the fact that my body should be able to make the decisions when it comes to what I eat, but I still want to continue with this experiment of keto. But I have run into some challenges and I'd love to walk you through those and just kind of give you some insight into what you might run into. So I really thought that when I started keto that my biggest challenge would be the keto flu. And the keto flu is a syndrome of symptoms that are related to a lot of times being dehydrated. When we remove carbs from our diet, we will lose a bit of water because of the glycogen stores also being associated with our water storage in our body. So when we remove carbohydrates, we'll naturally dehydrate to a degree. So that can be part of the syndrome of keto flu, in addition to electrolyte deplenishment. So losing electrolytes due to food changing as well. And then your body is switching from using carbs as its main source of fuel to using fat as its main source of fuel. And there can definitely be a lag time in there, and reportedly performance can be an issue during that time as well. Now, to be fair, I did change up my training when I started keto, so I can't give a one-for-one comparison. I started training fasted in the morning and I really enjoyed that. But I'm also training more circuit training style and not just bodybuilding style. So again, I can't completely compare, but I have felt really good during my training in the morning and I've really enjoyed that addendum to my process. So I didn't really experience what I'd call a keto flu. I have done this in the past, although my last keto experiment wasn't super strict. And then I did carnivore for about a month and I definitely struggled with that one a bit more with the really low or actually absent veggie intake. I appreciated and enjoyed keto the last time I did it, but again, I don't think I did it strict enough to actually get into ketosis. And I'm more convinced of that now that I've been on a keto diet for 3 weeks and have still not been able to maintain ketosis, which is a little bit aggravating, but also really enlightening. Ketosis is that state in which your body is using fat for fuel, where you no longer have the carb stores to support your bodily functionings. Obviously, you always have some, your brain needs some carbs to function, so your body will maintain some glycogen storage to support brain function. So we'll always have that, but when it comes to like our muscular functions and general metabolic functions, we'll start to use fat for fuel, and we will release a byproduct of fat metabolism called ketones, and then our body will use that as fuels. And then we can track our ketones through blood testing, through that Keto Mojo monitor I showed you, to see how many ketones are circulating in our bloodstream. And truly we want to see ketones within that 1 to 3 range for it to be considered true ketosis. At 0.5, you are technically in light nutritional ketosis, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that if you're only ever getting to 0.5, you're probably not really in ketosis for much time out of the day, as you're only getting one little blip of the picture, and you're probably gonna get bumped out of ketosis pretty easily in that state. One time, I got my ketones up to 1.0, and that was after using MCT oil. MCT oil is very trendy when it comes to keto, but what it does truly is it's absorbed directly into the liver, so it bypasses our typical digestive system. We take it in through the stomach and then it's immediately transported into the liver, and then through that we can actually release ketones pretty immediately from there. So using MCT oil itself is a really great tool to increase the amount of circulating ketones in your bloodstream, creating, I don't want to say an artificial sense of ketosis, but it's not just ketones that are produced from being into ketosis, it's also from the metabolism of the MCT oil. But it's really helpful to use during a keto diet to help maintain that state of ketosis. That said, again, I have only been checking my ketones about once or twice a day, but only once have I seen them get up to 1.0, and on average it tends to be around 0.4 to 0.6. So I'm really not sitting in ketosis most of the time. It's a challenge, and to be honest, there's a couple of things that I think are contributing to that. One, I love vegetables. I think it's very important to have veggies in the diet to make sure that you're having high fiber to support gut health. I digestively feel a lot better. I actually crave vegetables quite a bit. I've always really enjoyed vegetables, and when I don't have them, I start to notice that I just don't feel as good. My digestion slows down pretty quickly, and we know from the research that different fiber sources are really vital for supporting gut health. And we think about health overall and even our ability to sustain a body weight or body composition that we want, that is ideal for us. We need gut health to be in a good spot. So I'm not going to compromise my gut health just to get into ketosis. That said, I'm hoping to play around with some different strategies over the next couple of weeks to make sure I can get up into ketosis a little bit more consistently, just so I can truly report on that experience and actually have an idea of what it's like to be in ketosis for a sustained amount of time. Another thing that could be contributing is my protein intake. When I switched from being vegan to going into a keto diet, my protein intake went from probably 100 to 120 a day to now 140, 150 a day, which isn't an excessive amount of protein. When I was in bodybuilding, I was taking in at least 180 grams a day, and at one point I had 220 grams of protein per day, which probably a bit excessive, but somewhat comes down to preference, especially when you're in off season. That said, my protein intake now is, about 1 per 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is a general recommendation that I like to use as a coach, just depending on the person and their digestive tolerance. I personally do actually crave protein quite a bit, and since I've added meat back in my diet, now my protein intake is quite a bit higher. That said, protein in and of itself can trigger an insulin response. And insulin and ketones work inversely. So when you have an inverse relationship between something, insulin goes up, ketones will go down in a inverse fashion, right? So what we want ideally is low carb intake, because what that does is it reduces the carbs that your body can be using for fuel so that our body can use fat, but it also prevents that insulin spike. That insulin spike will be inversely related to ketone levels. So if we can keep insulin low, ketones can continue to build and continue to increase over time, keeping us in that state of ketosis. However, it's not just carbs. When we eat protein, especially in the absence of carbs, our body is extremely intelligent and super adaptable, and it can break down protein and through a process called gluconeogenesis, shift that protein into carbs in our body. and that will actually trigger an insulin response. So even though my blood glucose isn't going up when I eat protein per my glucometer, I could still be having an insulin response, which is kind of triggering that decline in the ketones. So a couple of things that could be contributing. Again, I'm not planning on cutting back on vegetables. That's really important to me. All of my other carb sources are fairly low. You'll see that my night snack probably includes the most carbs in the day, as I do like to have some Greek yogurt. My protein powder does have some carbs in it, and I do add some flax and chia seeds. But again, if I'm prioritizing health here, I really want to make sure that health and performance are supported. And I would still expect to see that I could get into ketosis earlier in the day, considering that meal is at the end of my day. So I'm planning on playing around with things. I'm gonna keep making adjustments from day to day and see what I can accomplish in terms of getting into and sustaining ketosis for a longer amount of time. What I want to try next is using MCT oil more frequently throughout the day. So perhaps doing 3 doses of 10 grams a day, seeing if that will keep me in a state of ketosis for longer. Then I can get the benefits of being in ketosis without restricting carbs from vegetables. So it's been a fun experiment. Again, it's definitely taught me a lot. Personally, with how trendy keto has become in the last few years, I thought it would be a lot easier to get into ketosis, and it has been a lot more of a challenge for me than I anticipated, but not in the ways that I thought. I didn't struggle with performance. I haven't struggled with energy levels. I haven't really struggled with moodiness or brain fog or any of the things associated with traditional keto flu, like I mentioned. But actually getting into ketosis has been the challenge. So perhaps once I get into ketosis and sustain it for longer, start to experience some different side effects or just notice changes in my body more readily. So I'll keep you guys updated on the process. Again, as with any experiment, you really never know what's gonna happen, and I think it's just really cool to see how the body responds. So I'm gonna keep chugging along with this, keep seeing what I can learn, and share any tips and tricks that I glean from this process with you so that you can try this in your own personal experiment or just get a little bit more information before you decide to do a keto diet. For now, let's get to the full day of eating, starting with meal 1, breakfast, which I had after my workout. So this morning I actually have been working with Rover. Rover is an app in which you can dog sit. So I went and took my dog friend out this morning and then went to the gym and trained fasted. Got done with that, came back and had my meal 1. I had some spinach, cauliflower rice, a couple of eggs, then topped with organic cheddar and some everything seasoning, and then finally MCT oil. I also had some fish oil with that. I use Triton by Legion, which is one of the best fish oils that I found on the market after extensive research. And while eggs can be pro-inflammatory due to the nature of egg whites and how they react in our body, using something like fish oil is helpful because you can incorporate those omega-3s to help kind of offset that inflammation. After this meal, I'm gonna head out to yoga. Then I plan on going and grabbing some groceries. Just got done with yoga. Did a restore class, which is deep stretching, and I definitely needed it. I've been doing those classes a little bit less frequently lately, as I've really enjoyed the more power-based yoga or like vinyasa style yoga. However, my joints feel it, so I know I need to still incorporate some deep stretching, even if it's just once or twice a week. And then I've been trying to make a habit of, on Thursdays, which is my rest day, if I don't get to restore yoga, I still go to the gym in the morning and make sure that I do a bunch of mobility work, which has been really fun. And it's definitely challenged me to spend a little bit of extra time on pretty much my full body, investing in mobility work. And because it's the same time that I would normally go to the gym, I don't really think about the time investment of it, or it doesn't feel like a hassle because it's the time that I would normally spend lifting anyways. So I can get that time in the morning, really dig into those problem areas and work on accessing a little bit more mobility in areas like my shoulders and my hips that aren't necessarily bad or injured per se, but definitely have some room for improvement for accessing certain positions. So that's been really great. I really enjoyed yoga today, and now I'm headed to Costco. I go to Costco about once a week for groceries, obviously, but then I'll also probably go to the grocery store at least once a week as well, just because there's a couple of other little items at the grocery store that I like that I don't purchase at Costco, or they aren't available at Costco. However, at this point, being keto, most of my groceries are coming from Costco, which is super convenient and really cost effective. So you've seen my haul recently when I started keto. It's gonna be about the same this time. I'm really enjoying these food options, so I'm gonna stay fairly consistent, and we'll go from there. After Costco, just gonna hang out for the rest of the day, and I'll continue to show you my meals and show you what I do. Although, to be completely honest, I'm just thankful for a really restful Saturday. I've been a little bit high stress lately, and I know I need to take some time to rest. So this will be a great opportunity. And the fact that this weekend's kind of stormy and overcast is a great opportunity to get a little bit of extra rest. Maybe chill, watch some Lord of the Rings. If you guys have not watched that on Amazon Prime and you are a massive geek like me, highly recommend. Really enjoying that series, and there's a new episode every Friday. So this is the first time in a while that I've started a show where I'm waiting for the next episode to come out, and it feels kind of good to just have something silly and lighthearted, although I guess Lord of the Rings is neither silly nor lighthearted. I'm just trying to disclaim it so it doesn't sound as serious, but I'm actually really pumped. So that's probably what I'll do later. Catch up with Dee since she's playing. Her and her volleyball team are playing this weekend. I want to hear about their match. They're playing right now, so just sending prayers that everyone's safe and healthy and focused on the court. And then I'm excited because she's actually coming back tonight. So that's what I'm doing now. I will catch you up later. Back from yoga and Costco, and I had my second meal of the day just a bit later than I typically do. I have been doing a bit of intermittent fasting, I guess you could say, eating around 11 or 12 every day. Although earlier in this week, I started experiencing hunger a bit earlier in the morning, and I had to make what I felt was a hard call, whether or not to honor that or to try to stay consistent. And I decided it would be best to honor my body, to feed it when it's hungry, regardless of my goal. With keto, I always want to make sure that I'm honoring my body. This journey of intuitive eating has been extremely important to me, and I don't want to undo the process of that by reverting back to strict rules around the types of foods and the timing of foods. Instead, I can find this balance between honoring my body and what it needs and what it wants, and also doing these personal experiments. So doing keto, but allowing myself to shift foods from day to day, and maybe even shift the timing of my meals just depending on what my body is telling me that it needs. But for the most part, I would say on average, I'm having my first meal between 10 and 12 every day. So today was a little bit later since I went and took the dog out this morning, came back after the gym and ate at 11. Then I ended up going to yoga and Costco, didn't get back until around 3:30 or so, at which point I ate again. So that was a bit late, but I'll probably still get in the same amount of food as usual, just because I've noticed, regardless of when I eat in the day or how big my first couple of meals are, I tend to eat about the same amount every single day. And I find that if I start intentionally restricting food or reducing calories in meals, or trying to become a little bit more controlling, as with my past, I think it's just a natural tendency for me to go back to. If I start to do that, what I notice immediately is my steps get lower, my energy gets lower. It's like my body immediately tries to compensate for that reduced intake by slowing down my metabolism and by reducing my energy expenditure, even though I'm not necessarily trying. Whereas when I eat an adequate amount of food, I eat what I want, when I want, as much as I want, I end up being way more active and energized throughout the day, and I'll find myself feeling more inclined to go for walks and to go to the store just to walk around and get up and get out of here because I get a little bit more restless. And it's not so much to do with tracking steps, as I really don't look at my daily step count on the daily. I tend to sync my Oura Ring every few days. When I do that, I see, oh, my step count actually went up dramatically when I increased my food, whereas as soon as I started decreasing my food or my calories started falling, what happened? My step count dropped significantly, almost exactly in line with the caloric deficit that I was in. So if I reduced calories by, say, 400 a day, I would get like 3,000 or 4,000 fewer steps in the day easily, and a lot less neat, just moving around and fidgeting throughout the day. So it's pretty interesting. I think there are some biohacks, and obviously for competition prep and things like that, we have to be really particular about our expenditure and our caloric intake. But when it comes to being a healthy, active human who feels good in their body, who lives in a body that they love, and honestly who has a fit body, I think we almost always do better by eating enough and then being active in a way that we enjoy. If I eat enough, I will go for walks, I will randomly go play tennis or go for a bike ride or go to a harder yoga class because I have the energy to do so. And then in that way, you end up tending to offset towards a leaner, healthier, more active physique. So biohacks don't always work when your body actually knows how to be healthy if you just listen to it. So meal 2 for the day was 4 ounces of chicken with vegetables. I did the stir fry from Costco, just removing the carrots and peppers, and a few crepini wraps, which are made with cauliflower and egg whites. Not something I use every day, but it was a fun addition this week. To be honest, I'm feeling my digestion a little bit off since having those, so wouldn't necessarily recommend if you have any kind of sensitivities to egg whites. But there are some products out there like that that can help you enjoy what would typically be a carb source with some alternative ingredients, depending on how you digest them, because always want to prioritize that. Then I had some avocado with that and topped it with some kombu flakes for iodine. Seaweed is awesome because of the iodine content. And then topped that with a little bit of olive oil and enjoyed those wraps. For meal 3, I had some ground bison, cauliflower rice, smoked salmon, and Kalamata olives. I also topped this with pecorino romano. Forgot to picture that here, kind of added it last minute. This was an awesome meal. And finish off the day with my favorite night snack. I like to mix a little bit of Greek yogurt with cinnamon and stevia. Mix that all together. That's going to be our topping. Then I do a scoop of Ghost protein with some almond milk. Add some chia seeds, flax seeds, and then I mix that all together till it forms kind of batter or dough is the texture. And then I top it with the yogurt, which I also threw all over the counter. And then I put it in the fridge. I let that sit for a few hours before I enjoy it at night, and it creates this thick, like cookie dough texture with kind of an icing on top. It's absolutely amazing.